Good morning, Pie Corbett. How are you?
I'm very well, actually. I mean, despite the sweltering heat, which which in schools, of course, is going to be absolutely awful, no doubt. Despite that, because we live in an old stone cottage, so actually it's cool inside.
Mm,
Um, and um, and I'm faring well. I've had a really interesting week. I finished editing, Jamie. I'm too excited, I have to tell you.
mm,
But I like to go into schools. Um, well, I've either done it online or actually go in and run a writing workshop. And I think if you're going to pontificate about education, you should keep in touch with teaching and have the decency to do the odd bit of teaching. I mean, I'm very old now. The last time I did a proper bit of teaching was about 7 years ago, and I took year five for, I think it was 5 weeks, something like that.
mm.
So now it's sort of the odd writing workshop. Anyway, this one is from Coastlands. It's called Dream Poems from Coastlands. That one I did entirely over the courtesy of the internet and sent Wenda, the really wonderful teacher at Coastlands Primary in Pembrokeshire. I sent her a model poem, and then she worked on that with the children. I visited the school, so they sort of know me, and I know Wenda well. This one has just come out now. I went and got it from the printers. Dragon poems, and you've got the poems and children's illustrations, as well as Andy Fraser's wonderful dragon work. Um, and we I ran a workshop back in February, it was actually, about an hour or so, and we did the classic spine poem, where you look at the detail of the dragon, and the spine goes down the middle of the page, so that your first line is the dragon waited or something, or you introduce your subject, and then you look at the details. So you get, you know, its eyes, its wings, its talons, its teeth. So it's like a spine down the middle, and then you sort of flesh it out so that you get a descriptive piece of writing. Nelmina started hers with vibrant pastel coloured webbed wings fluttered as she perched on the arched tree branch.
Wow.
Black beady eyes stared at the bright stars. Teeth are like mini needles of a saw, and on it goes. You get this lovely,
Mm.
crisp writing where they've really got to choose their words well. So that's just come out and it's gone in today. I gave it to one of the TAs. She's gone in with a bag full of the anthologies to distribute to the children. So I know there'll be that exciting moment when they get and when they get the anthologies. And I often wonder about this, Jamie. Why is it? It's so easy to do. Most schools do, certainly larger schools have a colour photocopier. Why
Mm,
is it we don't do more little collections?
mm,
Maybe one a term. And if you did that across Key Stage 2, that would be one a term, 3, 6, 9, a dozen mini anthologies by the time they leave,
mm,
celebrating them as writers. I don't know why we don't do it. It's a very because what I do know about this class, if I went and did it again, because they know what it's going to be like, and when they take it home, the effect on mum and dad, etc. I know that they're going to work even harder second time round, both on the artwork that they did and on the writing. So anyway, I'm buzzing with that. It's very exciting. How about you, Jamie? What's your week been like?
mm. Um, well, yeah, the heat is a good one to. I feel like everyone's catastrophizing about the heat in schools at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a good conversation yesterday with some some colleagues who were sort of saying, it's just getting too much, and so I'm pretty certain it has been the same every year. Like it is. I sort of look at colleagues in Scotland and think maybe they've got the right idea because they've sort of broken up good, probably
Yes.
3 weeks ago now from when we're recording this, and obviously they go back a little bit earlier as well because of course that's what we all know is coming. We know that we've got another, well, it'll be probably 10 days for most schools in England, and then we'll all break up, and then the weather will go to pot. It will all go down the drain. But yeah, beyond that, this week in my role has been school improvement plan week. So that's
Ah,
well, I said that a bit sarcastically, but actually, I do quite enjoy things like that because it is sort of setting out your vision, isn't it, for the following year, and really, thinking about what what do we really need to get right next year? What are the things that we can do better? And I like that. I like thinking about, what I think it's all well and good thinking about things that you do well. That's great, but how do you just keep sharpening it up? And yeah, so that's been exciting, and yeah, it sort of sets you up nicely to hit the ground running in September. But we said when we did our introductory session, well, we said we're not allowed favourites, and we do have a good run of guests lined up. I was having a conversation a couple of days ago with Shirley Clark, and we're all set to go with her. And I've dug out my very ancient copy of Enriching
Hey.
Feedback in the Primary Classroom, which I read, I reckon about 10 years ago. So we're very much looking forward to that. But today's session we are both very much looking forward to, aren't we? Today we've got Suzie Cadey with us, who well, Susie, you're from one of the Talk for Writing centres down in Hastings, and in the early years. So that is a passion. Well, Pie and I, it's the early years and early years practice is something that we are yeah, both very passionate about. So we've really been looking forward to this. And do you want to talk a little bit about just the context of your school? Because Pi touched on this in the first episode that we did, but I think it'd be good maybe just to give everyone a little bit of context.
Absolutely. So yeah, as you said, I'm from Mulberry, West St Leonards. We are a two-form primary school from reception to year six. We also have a resource provision unit, which is for children with multiple and profound disabilities. And what's unique about this is those children are fully integrated into the mainstream classrooms in the afternoon. We have an above national average percentage of pupil premium children. So we have 32% pupil premium children. And we are in the Baird ward of Hastings, and that is ranked as the seventh most deprived area in England.
Mm. And you know the Hastings area quite well, Pi, because you
Yeah.
worked in Hastings. Is that right?
Um, I grew up near Hastings, so it's my old stomping ground. And yes, I've done a lot of work in various schools there. So yeah, it's coastal, it's deprived. Um, and what was it you said, Susie? Seventh
Most
most
deprived
deprived
neighbourhood
area?
in England.
Yeah, and it's mainly white working class kids, to put it crudely, isn't it?
Hmm. We have a mixture at
Okay.
West St Leonards now. Yeah.
Yeah. So what we thought we'd talk about is the passion that you and we have for what we in talk writing call invention. Can you explain for anyone who doesn't know what invention is, what is it?
Hmm.
And then go on to talk about how do you do it in a sort of basic practical way. And then we can tease away at things like what's the impact? Why would you bother to get kids making stories up? So
Hmm.
over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, well, it's essentially what you've just said there. It's making up a story. But what we need to do is explicitly teach children how to sequence a story. We've got children that have come with a wide range of experience with books. So it might be that they've had some exposure at home or some exposure at nursery or their preschool or none at all. And they've got some idea of stories, but what they lack really is the understanding of the components that make a story and a structure. So when we're teaching how to invent a story, we need to think about a logical order that things happen in a story, that it's got a beginning, a middle, and an end. And this explicit teaching is really what story invention is, particularly in the early years. So how we do that, if I could maybe talk to you about our story bags that we have in reception. So we think carefully about objects that we are putting into a bag for the children to use when they are inventing a story. And these objects have some sort of similarity or some link that the children are able to then build a coherent story from. Within the bag as well, there's be some sort of fabric that they can use to tease out a story setting and a story string or mountain that they're able to use with their 5-part coloured cards. So I can go into some more details about that.
Yeah, I mean, just talk a little bit about the string, because it's we know what you mean, but I think there's some really important and interesting detail there. So just talk about how you use that and what the point of that is.
Okay. So with a story string, so we use a piece of skipping rope, and a story string is a linear approach to storytelling. And why we think this works particularly well is it's working in the same way as when you're reading a sentence. You're teaching directionality going from left to right, and that's how our story will start. We'll go from the beginning and we'll move through the parts of the story. So we're going along a line, if you will, along the string. And we teach that with 5 parts. So we start gently and we start with 5 sentences for those 5 parts. So there'll be a once upon a time, then there'll be an early one morning, something terrible will happen, unfortunately, and then we solve that problem with our luckily, and then we have an ending where everything's well again for our characters.
And
And
that's,
we're building
Susie,
that.
to imagine it, you've got, so they choose a cloth, let's say it's blue, so that's a story set in the sea, probably, or the sky, I guess. So they lay that on the ground, and then at this stage, early on, your story rope goes from left to right.
That's right, yes.
And then they've got the cards, so they know. Do you do coloured cards? I can't remember.
We do. So we began with doing just the 5 actions to teach the children those story sentence openers. And then we introduced 5 colours. So then we're trying to encompass lots of different ways the children are embedding, understanding those 5 parts in the order they come in. There was no real science to the colours. We did know we wanted green to start. Green means go. So we have 5 colours that represent the 5 different parts. So the children identify that either with a picture or the colour or the action. So there's lots of things that can support them when they're putting in place those 5 parts correctly.
And tell me, when you do the opening, you've got a once upon a time. Do you do who at that point?
We do. And the reason that we do this is the children need to embed these patterns of language, which they're mostly unfamiliar with. I know once upon a time there was a wicked old witch who lived in a deep dark forest, and the repetitive nature of this, we're doing it explicitly every single week with the children on a Make It Up Monday session, that they are then embedding that into their vocabulary, and you're seeing that then when they're using the story bags independently. So we do this session whole class once a week.
Okay, so the Make It Up Monday, that's the whole class teaching.
That's right, yes.
Do you have a bigger version, if you see what I mean, for the whole class, or is it the one out the story bag the kids are going to use?
We use the one out of the story bags that the children will use, and then the TA will be teaching as well alongside how to text map. So the children are already seeing how you have got the objects to create your story and invent your story, and also how you would describe meaning to marks when you're then text mapping on a similar structure. So then the template, if you like, is the same as what we're building on the string.
Okay, so I'm imagining it now. I imagine you sit on the floor, is that right? Or
That's right. Yep.
You're on the floor, you've got the
kind of
kids
shape.
with you, and you take the stuff out of the bag and all of that and lay it out. So it's on the cloth, and beside you or somewhere near you, there's a TA drawing a map. Is that one of those backward S's? Sort
No,
of
they're also doing that on a story string. So we're absolutely mirroring what we're doing with the bag, with the text mapping.
With the left to right.
That's right, yeah.
And of course you've got the actions. So what do you do for
once upon a time?
Okay, and then who?
Wicked old witch who?
Who? So that would give us once upon a time there was a giant who lived near Hastings. And the ideas, presumably, are they coming out of the bag or from the children?
From the children. So when we initially start, and if you think in September, what we're trying to do is unlock children's imagination, deepen their creativity, and also teaching them how to speak in full sentences and expand their vocabulary. So in September, it's quite heavily guided, I would say, by the adult. And as the children each week are becoming more familiar with the patterns of language, with the structure, it's much easier to generate those ideas from the children. We go with every idea is valid. Your first idea is not always your best idea. So we've got a TA banking those as well. And then we can choose that as a class, who's going to be our character and where's our character going to live. So there's a lot of idea generating to begin with before then we set off on our story
Okay.
journey.
So you've got your Once Upon a Time Who, which gives us a character and a setting. And then the next bit is you do early one morning, do you?
We do initially, yes, that's how we start. So we have our 5 sentence starters, and that is one of those before we introduce
So
further ones. So we
what
do early
action do
one
you
morning.
do for that?
We've got our sunshine early one morning.
Early one
Have a go.
morning, okay. Early one morning, and
It
then
depends what we've got in the bag.
okay.
So there'll
It
be lots
depends
of
on the bag.
yes, so there will be 5 objects when we first start for the children to choose from. And as I said, these objects do have some sort of correlation to each other so that the story will make sense. So that's another big area that is tricky when you're maybe going off on a tangent to then bring you back to, well, how does this link? How does this sequence? Does this make sense? It's fine
Yes.
to try it out. So we would have a look what else is in the bag. Okay, what could our character be either maybe wanting to find something, go somewhere, which object might fit next for us to work with on early one morning?
Yeah, that all makes absolute sense because you can't really. I've seen it when people have done storytelling, story making, where they say to a child, well, where were they?
Mm,
And they just look at you because they don't have an internal bank of
Mm.
possibilities. So at the beginning, it's very much, as you said, guided so that we can get some success. So you've got the prompts and it's all going to work. And
mhm.
then presumably over time, you could have more objects in the bag or even just ask children. And because they've got banks of ideas, it gets easier and easier. So
That's
we've got
absolutely.
that the build up, what I call the build up, the early one morning, the character starts to do something. Is that right?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
Um, and initially, that's going to be quite simple while we're trying to
Mm.
just teach the structure of how
Yes.
things link and how a story will continue to the end. We're just trying to do 5 simple sentences. But as you alluded to there, we will develop that as the year goes on and use the tools from the earliest toolkit to embellish our stories.
Let's stick with
Initially,
the pattern, Susie. So our main character is, I don't know, you take a loaf of bread out or whatever, and he's going to go to the bakery, let's say. And then the middle bit, this is the dilemma. So what sentence start do you have for that?
but this one will have an unfortunately, and
Ah,
this is probably vocabulary that they've not been exposed to before,
yes.
unless they've read maybe some stories that do have
Yeah.
that vocabulary. So it's quite interesting. We've got the washing line up in our Talk for Writing area with these 5 key prompts in the 5 colours. So we've got lots of children there with their unfortunately face looking very unhappy,
Yeah.
and we know that something terrible is going to happen to our character.
Oh dear. Unfortunately, he gets lost or whatever it is. And then what do you go for luckily? What's
We
your
do. We solve it luckily.
jazzy
Luckily,
hands?
yeah.
Luckily. Um, so that's, and of course, what you're trying to do is help children get a coherent story where one thing leads to another. And that's really hard when you're 4 years old because you've
Mm,
got to remember what happened in the previous sentence,
that's it.
what happened at the beginning of the story and tie it all together. So it's cognitively, I think, really very challenging. And
And
then you do finally, do you?
then then we do finally, and we've carried our character home in a happy ending.
Yeah. Okay. So that's I can imagine that. And you lead the way, you teach them how to do it, and then that's a play option, is it? Or do they all have to do it at some point? Or how does that work?
So you're quite right. We have that in our continuous provision then.
Yeah.
So that same story bag will be in continuous provision, as well as a selection of others that the children can then use the knowledge that they've gained from our carpet session whole class and apply it to a different story bag. We have that indoors and outdoors. And then from that session, there will be some children perhaps that we've picked out that might need a little bit of small group work with either the teacher or the TA over that week with different focuses. It might just be that actually these children, we're just going to work on that opening, that once upon a time there was a who lived. And so we're really embedding that first part and that first story pattern for them.
Okay. So there's assessment going on there and targeted group sessions to help children. So I can see all that, and gradually, as the term goes along, they become more confident. They've got the map, so they can look back and see what happens, and you can refer back to that. So, what's the next development, the next stage?
So during that first term, there's a heavy amount of assessment as to how quickly we would move on. We want to make sure that that 5-part story is embedded before we add any more tools from the toolkits or other sentence signposts for the children. The most important thing for them is they have got that 5-part structure, and they know that they need to have a sequence of events that link to make the story. Once we've got that, then we will embellish using some different language patterns. We might introduce a first, next, then, not 1, not 2, but 3 of something, and those things will then go into the bag to support us. Something that's great with using natural objects or sort of peg dolls that we have is those things then challenge the children's imagination. Initially, the objects might be quite obvious. This is a pirate and we're going to use it as a pirate. A peg doll can be anything. And so that way we're supporting the children to now think a little bit more creatively and take a bit more ownership over what is in that story bag and how their ideas need to come through a little bit more than my ideas, if you like.
Yeah, I can see that, because at the beginning you're very carefully
That's
choosing those objects. So in a way, you're predetermining pretty much what's going to happen.
And I think that's important as a teacher, that when you're
Yes.
teaching something, actually you have already got a plan where this story will go. Because
Yes.
if it's very tricky to pull those ideas out, you need to have some starting blocks and building blocks for the children. However, once they've got that pattern, that understanding, and actually this object can mean anything, those building blocks are passed over to the children.
Okay. So increasingly, because you're using things like the peg dolls, which in a sense are sort of, well, it's a character, but you've got to make your own character up, sort of thing. So I can see that's the progression. Why don't we quickly make one up?
A story?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do
So
it.
Susie, you start us off.
Okay.
I'll do a build up.
You're gonna put
Jamie
me on
can
the
do the
spot.
unfortunately. Then back to Susie for the resolution, and I'll wrap it up.
Okay.
Right. Before we get started, Pie, because I know you. Right, you are not allowed to try and trip us up.
Okay, I'll be very good and
I
make
know
it
how this
go
game
here.
works.
I won't chuck a gerbil in.
Anything's possible in Invention. Let's limit this.
A
Here we go.
gerbil called Gerald who lives in a kettle. Right, start us off, Susie.
Okay. Right, we'll go with, so once upon a time we open up our hands like a book. So we'll do, once upon a time there was a unicorn who lived in a magical kingdom. Over to you, Pie.
Early one morning, the unicorn woke up and went to look for something to eat in the forest.
Unfortunately, so what have you got an action for? Unfortunately, Susie.
Yeah, we're going to shrug our shoulders, put our hands out to the side, maybe make a sad face. Unfortunately.
Okay, so unfortunately, unfortunately, so I'll do the action with it. Unfortunately, as she was walking through the forest, she saw a mysterious figure in the distance. Is Pie going to build on it?
Oh, that's me now. Thanks, Jamie.
Oh, is it?
Right,
Sorry,
here we
Susie.
go.
Oh, I've done the opposite.
Now, luckily, I'm going to put my hands up to the front and like a surprise face. Luckily, she saw it was not 1, not 2, but 3 of her pixie friends who had come with a picnic for her. Over to
And
you,
I'll do
Pie.
a finally, which is sort of policeman's hand stopping a traffic. Finally, they sat down in a sunny glade and had a picnic lunch with jelly, ice cream, strawberries, could be here for a while, pineapple slices, and a beautiful cake with candles that twinkle like stars.
And then we finish with the end and we close our book, hands together.
The end.
The
What
end.
what do you do? Who is a sort of twiddly
That's
thing in
it.
the
Twiddly
air?
finger. What? your index finger in the air, whizzing round.
Yeah, whizzing round. And what do you do for early one morning?
Early one morning, we put one arm on top of the other horizontally, and we
Okay.
lift up the top arm like the sunrise is coming up
Oh,
early
I
one
see.
morning.
Yes. Like a lid opening.
That's it, like a lid
Early
opening,
one
yeah, with the sun
morning.
coming up.
Okay. Yeah. And of course, all of that multi-sensory, we're hearing it, we're saying it, we're acting it out. Mrs. drawing it, we're going to draw it.
We've got some
All of
colours
that
as
is
well
why
that
it
mean different
works.
things. So we've got the 5 colours. So even if we had
Yeah.
nothing else, we know the 5 colours, which order those 5 colours are going in as well is important. So a multitude of ways that we're enabling children to be successful in their 5-part sequence.
It's interesting. You know, there used to be a thing that people had learning styles, and now everybody says there's no such thing, and research says, and all of that. And I often think about myself with learning styles. Think, well, actually, if I'm planning something, I need to see it.
Yes.
I get a big bit of
to do
sugar
it.
paper. I
Yeah.
have to draw it out. Maybe that's an inclination. I don't know. But what I do know is that if you want people to learn things, processing it in lots of different ways, like we do, like we've just described, you're more likely to get everybody learning one way or the other.
That's it.
So it's a very powerful approach. And in terms of standards, it pays off. And when people talk about oracy, I'm doing an oracy lesson. I often think, actually, if you did what we do and what our great training centers and great teachers like you see, actually, if you did that, it would really help kids from poor backgrounds who've not been read to. It gives them access to writing and access to reading because you're teaching the underlying structures. What else helps them to make progress during the year?
We journey from a linear approach of the story string. We move then to a story mountain. And that's a different approach for how you're building a story. And it also supports their transition as they go into year 1. We use the story mountain in year 1. So then obviously we've got a direction of travel as well, rather than just linear. And then once we've done the story mountain and we've had that for a while embedded, then we also introduce a story trunk, where the children have got bags of objects that they select from. So for example, they'll have a green bag because green is our opening. And inside that green bag, there's a range of characters that they can then choose from. They move to a different bag that's blue for our build up, and they can choose from a range of different objects. That would be the build up. So the challenge here for the children is choosing objects that link. So they've got to self-select items and pictures or objects that make a coherent story for themselves, rather than the adult has been slightly responsible for that.
And presumably, Susie, by that point, when they're using the story trunk, which I imagine is a sort of box with the bags in it.
That's right, yes.
I imagine that by that point, they're pretty confident in the choosing independently and going off and making a story up, on their own or with others?
It would be absolutely dependent on how they wanted to approach their learning. We have children that do choose that independently. We have some collaborative learning, or it might be guided by an adult. Let's have a go with this now. This is a different way to structure our story. And yes, that's in provision, and that's also another way that we're doing a carpet session. But you're quite right, Pie, in saying that would be much later in the year, sort of summer term. That's where we would probably be introducing that level of choosing items for their stories.
So you said a bit about the importance of gradually developing the story starters. What about things within sentences?
And again, that would be the same. So when we first start in September, they are 5 simple sentences. Because as you have previously just mentioned, remembering it is part of it being quite tricky. Especially when you're 4. So we always have lots of going back over the story, remodeling as the teacher, using the text map to remind us this meant when we did once upon a time, here's the picture. As we go through the year, we carefully select which tools we're going to use in our taught sessions on a Monday. And then what our hope is then in their independent learning in provision, the children are using those tools within their sentence structures in the different stories that they're making.
So this would be things presumably like adjectives.
Adjectives, similes. We have a power of three. Our children very much enjoy power of
Ooh.
three. And we magpie things from stories that we're using in our Talk for Writing text as well. So, for example, in term one, we do the Three Little Pigs, and we have someone big, someone bad, someone furry, the wolf's coming to get them. And we magpie that, and we think, right, that we know that because we've internalized that pattern of language from our model text. We could use that in our invention. What could this character, unfortunately, instead of just a dragon has arrived, what do we know about a dragon? And we're bringing out some ideas in our group session, and then modeling how to put a power of three in place for our character.
So you've got invention going on all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's the golden thread by the sound of it, which is the bit where you're working with them to teach them so they can be independent storytellers.
Yes.
But that's being fed by another sort of strand, which is the imitation, the classic learning of text, fairy tales usually at that age, and then into innovation where they make some simple changes. But you've made a link from the imitation, innovation into the invention. So you're thinking about the story language, I suppose.
Absolutely. And that's very powerful because we know our young children are like sponges. They internalize everything that we're telling them and explaining to them. So if we're using, and we're very carefully planning in our model texts, some key vocabulary, some exposure to different language, vocabulary, extending sentences, those things are very transferable into our invention. And they already know those because we're doing those 4 times a week. So we do our Make It Up Monday, followed by 4 days of our model text. So both need to work together. They're not separate. And it's clever to think, right, what can we use and weave in then to our invention from things they already know that I've taught them in the model text.
So I imagine that when you're writing the model text that they're going to learn, you are very deliberately choosing the underlying, well, you've got the big pattern, but also some of those sentence features which you're thinking in your head, right, we could use that, like the sentence of three, we could use that. They're ready for a sentence of three in their own inventions.
That's right, yes. And we're thinking, right, which tools have we used here in our model text? And we can sort of magpie those over into our invention, where our main objective is really to get that coherent story in place. But they know this, they know these sentence patterns, they have exposure to lots of rich language in a different context, and we're showing them that actually that's okay to use in your invention. You don't just have to keep that specially for the Three Little Pigs, the Little Red Hen, whichever story you're choosing at that time. We can use that, but we can adapt it into our invention as well. We don't have to just have something completely different.
It's the classic magpieing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But it's fine to do that. That's what
Yes.
writers do. Now, I know that the children absolutely love it because I remember Jamie Thomas, when he visited, was blown away by how when he came into reception, there were children all over him saying, "Oh, look at my story." And so I know there's because of the way you do it, full of sort of enthusiasm and gusto. And what did I call you?
Wonder Unicorn.
The Wonder Unicorn. Because you do it in that very engaging manner, you sort of capture everybody, and they're obviously absolutely loving it. But how does the movement, because you've got oral composition going on, what's the movement into the writing? Because obviously at the beginning of the year, nobody can write anything down. They can record it, presumably through mapping.
Yes.
But how do you manage that movement into, because Jamie and I've talked a lot about this, and I know you've probably talked with Jamie about it.
Yes.
So can you just talk for us a little bit about the movement into writing? Because some of them will have quite long stories, perhaps, but they can't write all of that down.
Absolutely. And you're quite right in talking about the mapping. So that's where it would start for us, that they've got that their marks mean something. So
Yes.
everyone is an author, depending on what stage we're at. But Yeah, when we talk about transcription, that's there's so many components before you even start to think about writing letters. Like we've got to think about, have they got a dominant hand? How are we supporting the development of their shoulder muscles, their elbows, their wrists before we even get onto the fine motor? And eventually their phonic knowledge will catch up then with their oral composition. And I think it's about that understanding that children are going to develop that at very different rates. So whether it is just mapping at that stage, whether we've got enough sounds that we're going to initial sounds and we're doing a bit of on our mapping, we're just initial sounds over the map, whether we've got enough that we're going to be able to build some words or pop some words into a sequence to make some simple sentences. And it is, I think, for us about that gentle progression again, that we're not rushing the children into trying to write a story and putting a ceiling on their oral composition. We know that's going to be limitless, if you will, whereas the transcription is much more complex and a very tricky concept for those children. We have quite a few that come not with a dominant hand, so we're starting really at basic level. But what we find is the importance of the children acting out those stories, be that our whole class story. And some children, you'll have real actresses and actors want to come up and be the main characters. Some people might just want to come and be a bit of the setting, and that's fine. But everybody's engaged in that and developing their confidence in storytelling and being an author before we're worried really in reception about trying to get them to write that whole story. Parts of it's lovely if we can, but acting it out, their confidence in becoming a storyteller, the writing will come.
So the if you're doing the Little Red Hen or whatever, you might act that out, or probably would act that out.
Yes.
In the same way you might act a picture book out, I guess.
Absolutely.
But also their own inventions. So what do? Choose one or two a week sort of thing?
We would act out every invention we do as a whole class.
Yeah.
In the beginning, it might start with a couple of children. It might just be me and my TA. We're just acting out, just to bring that story to life, to show that it's not just a story that's in a bag, or a story you've just text mapped, a story that's in a book. We want to completely be immersed and enjoy storytelling, and that involves acting it out, being in a role. You learn a little bit more about the character by becoming that character. You learn a bit more about the bird in the tree by being that bird in the tree. So that's important to teach the children. That's another skill on top of the oral composition, acting it out. And then again, we would do that if we've got a small group of children that we've chosen to work with, we would do that with them, or individually if they've chosen to take a story bag, improvision, create and invent their own story. During story time, that child might come and be the narrator of their own story. Some of their friends might want to come and act that out for them, and they've got that sort of empowers the children to take ownership of the story time, but also come and be part of my story, and let's act it out like it's a play as well as a story.
The phonics, the sort of, and the handwriting, obviously that's running along all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And for what you were saying, what I gathered was that gradually, bit by bit, presumably you have to model initial sounds on the map.
Absolutely.
Simple labels moving towards a story. So probably in January, February, you've got some kids who can write.
Want to have a good go, yeah.
Once upon a time bit, or do you use spelling cards?
We have all of our key vocabulary on our washing lines, so around the room and the environment. We also have those at perhaps maybe our Talk for Writing area with the story bags. We have them in the story bag so the children can see those, and they are on the 5-part story cards as well. So all the actual graphemes are there. They can see those, and they could copyright some of those as well, have a go. And quite right, as you're saying, when we're modelling text mapping every week, we are modelling, actually, I have learnt this week, and I know that would go maybe where the mouse is. So we're really modelling that. And in our small group work, we'll be doing the same. Perhaps the children might have a go. We would text map, and they can have a go at writing onto the text map that we've created.
It sounds as if you have got as much of a focus and pay as much attention to the oral composition as you do to transcription. Is that?
I think that's fair. I think when we initially start, heavily focused around oral composition and the text mapping. But as I said, it's quite gentle. Like, you know, it's posing that question to the children. Oh, we do know those sounds. We've done those in phonics today. Again, making another link. Those are not separate lessons where we only do phonics in phonics. We only tell that story in the Little Red Hen because there's a little red hen. Everything interweaves. Or in handwriting, we learn how to form this letter. So let's put that onto our text map in the way we did it in handwriting. So it's really helping children to make those links between their own learning.
Yeah, and I think that's sorry, Michael.
Yeah, I was going to say, Jamie, I think we've discussed this. For me, the Little Red Hen is a really good one, or Gingerbread Man is a really good one for CVCs, because you've got the hen, the rat, the cat, the dog, or whatever it is. So yeah, there's an ideal. There are a couple of ideal stories for pitching it and saying, well, somewhere around here, most kids are on CVC, so we can use these stories. So I think there's something, isn't there, about the stories that you do for Talk for Writing, the imitation, the ones they're going to learn. There's something there about thinking carefully about the progression that will help them when they come to do the writing.
And we would do that with the invention. So as you're saying, we do the Little Red Hen, we do the Gingerbread Man, and we're teaching those characters, we're teaching how to write them. Why not have those in your invention bags? Because the children can go ahead and write a story about being on a farm or being in the woods with some of those characters they're already familiar with in your model text.
What's the impact? I mean, why do you do it? What's the effect? What's the impact of? Sounds wonderful, and I know it's wonderful.
Well, we want to give children the opportunity to explore language and story language in a playful, meaningful way. And from this, what we have seen is their enjoyment. They love being storytellers. So many of my children say, I want to be an author when I grow up, because they've just fallen in love with how to tell stories. And for some children, that happens extremely quickly. And so the success rate of that for them is almost immediate. You know, well, I couldn't do that when I started in September. October half term, I'm sitting in front of all of my friends telling a whole story that I've made up by myself. So for their self-esteem, their confidence, it's just so powerful, so powerful. And then if going on from the early years, when you see the writing then that comes further up the school, you think, we've done that. We've done that in reception. All the ideas are there from reception. And then the transcription side comes a little bit more naturally to them, because they don't have to worry. They don't have to take lots of their learning time thinking of the ideas. They've already got them, because all of those language patterns are embedded from reception.
Yeah.
And how a story is structured.
To put it crudely, how does it affect your, what is it, GLD?
Yes. Well, if you think in our prime area, so we're thinking about speaking and listening, and we're thinking about taking turns, we're thinking about if we're going into mark making, so we're thinking about our physical development. So those areas are strongly covered immediately in Talk for Writing. And then with their writing, where it's writing a simple sentence, we're over and above that. So I think they have phenomenal outcomes in reception from using Talk for Writing.
Yeah. And because Jamie's school does this, as you know, in reception, and it's very, very impressive. A completely different intake. So Jamie's is more posh. On the other hand, it sort of doesn't matter with storytelling.
Posh storytelling.
Where you are, everybody needs to tell stories and be able to read and write. So, Jamie, you're probably sitting on your tongue waiting to ask a question. So I'll hand it over to you.
I've scribbled down many. I've told you off for saying, but no, I always like to say posh for Folkestone, which is very different to, which is and those that know the Kent coastal area, is we're on a nice side of a coastal town that's quite deprived. So
Folkestone,
it's not Cambridge, but no, we just offended everyone in Cambridge. We skipped straight over our regular feature. That's fine. We'll come to that in a minute. We've got too excited, but there's if I may, there was something that you just said there that resonated with me so strongly, when you were talking about the phonics and the transcription catching up.
Mm.
And what struck me beneath everything that you've said is that you're not holding language and composition where it is and waiting for transcription to catch up.
Mm.
You're still driving the language and the composition forwards, and the
Absolutely.
transcription will eventually catch up with that. And you said something wonderful for me there at the end, around that idea that what you're doing now, in terms of in the transcription and in terms of in their writing, you will see it. It may not be in the reception year. And do
Mm.
you find that is it in some ways is that frustrating?
Um, no, I don't think it is, because actually what the beauty is for reception is we have a high level of children coming in with speech, language, and communication needs.
Yeah,
So the success for us is seeing how that has journeyed and that's traveled.
yeah,
And actually, when we celebrate, perhaps in a writing moderation, it's someone that's been in your class 2, 3 years ago, and you think, look at what the journey's been for them in transcription now. And that's
mm,
fine, because in early years, oral composition, I think, has to take the priority with storytelling.
yeah. It's probably the right answer, really. If you said yes, I do actually. I want all of the
Yes,
plaudits.
I'm crossed.
Yeah, great. We should move towards our regular feature. That's I mean that's just been fantastic. I've sat there scribbling down pretty much everything you've said. It's what an inspiration.
The only other thing I was going to ask is, do you ever turn any of the class stories into books?
We do. So our invention sessions, we actually have an invention book. So
Ah,
each week that goes in, and that's in our reading area, and the children can then access that freely. When we do we make a big book from our model text. So there's kind of
yeah.
a parallel there. So the children work in small groups, and they might do some transcription there as well to write a bit of a story and make that into a big book. And that's something that we encourage sort of towards the end of the year. The children have got the books, and they want to be making those themselves, so they could do that with their inventions as well. But yes, there is a class invention book, and the children's inventions will go in there as well.
Right.
I'm amazed by it all. I mean, so it makes me so happy that there are people like you out there strutting your stuff on a daily basis, particularly because the kids come from fairly impoverished, challenged backgrounds, and it's not easy for them. But also in Jamie's school, even though he doesn't like it when I posh for folks in school, put it like that. Um, it doesn't really matter who. It's just that idea of liberating people through narrative.
Mm.
Mm.
And
It's
coming
it's so
together collectively as
important.
well. Mm.
Sorry, I missed that.
Sorry, coming together collectively to enjoy it
Yes.
together as well. And you see that as a class or in a group, and when they're choosing to do that, as you said, that's the first thing they run to in the classroom when
Yeah.
provisions open. Then the bags are out, the large paper that they're text mapping across the floor on. That is when you know you've won, because they want to do it by themselves. They want to get their friends involved, and they don't need you as much anymore because they're so inspired and empowered to go and be a storyteller and a story writer themselves.
That's fantastic. And we should say that Mulberry, am I right in saying that you have mornings or days when people can come and have a look round?
We do, yes. You can book to come and see Talk for Writing in Action at our school, yes.
So, Jamie, I'm thinking we're probably eating up quite a lot of time.
Yeah, if we I know Susie's got a we'll finish off with a quick there's something you've been reading with your class this week. So perhaps if
Yeah.
we just finish off with that, Susie, of it's something we're doing in every episode is, what have you been reading? So just tell us very quickly, what that story is, perhaps a couple of things that you've enjoyed picking out from it, and then we'll wrap up. And yeah, thank you for this. I mean, absolute masterclass.
Oh,
And
thank you for having me. Thank
yeah,
you.
great. So go
Um,
on, what have you been reading this
Yes.
week?
So one of our 36 books that we've chosen this week, we've been focused on There's a Tiger in the Garden by Lizzie Stewart. And we absolutely love this story. The gorgeous illustrations draw you in straight away. And there's lots of rich vocabulary that we can take from that. but also the endless imagination in this book, but in a setting that's familiar to the children. So it's in a garden, and many children, I'm so bored, I've got nothing to do, and this is a setting that's familiar to them. So we actually then create our own stories from some of the images that are in this book. So it's been a real treat this week to hear some of the things that might appear in their garden or in their house.
Yeah, great
You're
choice.
making me want to now, let's all make a story up about what.
Yeah, that's it. Well, the last page is a mermaid pie, so we could carry on, mermaid in the bath.
Oh my goodness.
So what's going to happen now?
Do you know there are people whose job is to be a mermaid? You can hire mermaids for your kids' party. If you were in very posh folks, you had a swimming pool in the backyard.
And
you can hire mermaids to come and be in the pool,
and then it wouldn't be fantasy anymore. It wouldn't be just a story.
I'm sure there's a big story in that somebody who decided to dress up as a mermaid and then became a mermaid. I don't know. Anyway,
yes.
I'm talking drivel now. On that note, Susie, Jamie is right. That was an absolute masterclass and a real richness there for anyone who's sort of interested in developing that work. Go and visit Susie. Obviously, you can work with any of our trainers, etc., and read our, join the website, read our materials. What a joy to know that you're out there. What did I call you? The Wonder Unicorn. It's a great title. You are very welcome to be a unicorn or a mermaid or whatever you wish. Thank you so much, because you're giving those children such a great start in their lives. So
thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
That's a real pleasure, Susie. And maybe we'll come back another time and look at reading or some other aspect or of the work, or the imitation innovation piece.
Great. Yeah.
Right.
Jamie, anything to say to wrap up?
No, just thoroughly enjoyed that. So yeah, thanks Susie, and it'd be great to have you back. I know there's so much more we could talk about. I know you've also been reading a book on selective mutism, and we're not getting into that.
That
we're going to leave that for another day. Okay, well we'll finish up there then. So thanks everyone, and we'll see you on the next episode. And the next episode will be with Piers Torday. So we're very much looking forward to picking his brain. Published author. I talked a little bit about him in the first episode, and I know he's got lots of thoughts about children's writing that he's quite keen to explore as well. So we'll wrap it up there. Thanks everyone, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye Jamie. Bye Susie.
Bye.
Bye.